All right, there we go. Hello everyone, how's it going? Team here, and this is BxJS livestream, and we are doing another one of the code review stream. As you guys sent me quite a few projects, and I thought it would be a bit of a shame to leave some of them unreviewed. So we are gonna try to go through the rest of them today, and after that, the feedback basically on code reviews was kind of a mixed one, I guess. On one hand, there was a lot of people who were really happy about that. On the other hand, there was quite a few people who were not happy because instead of showing you new stuff, I'm doing code reviews. So I'm a bit conflicted on continuing this essentially. So again, if you have any feedback, do give it to me in the comments, give it to me in the Discord, whatever. I will be more than happy to basically hear more about what you think about this format. Hey Kepler, welcome to the stream. A long time no see live actually. Anyway, so we got 6 projects. As I said, I'm going to try to go through all of them. And the first one we got here today is, I guess I can just open it here. It's called React Sprout. It is from Bruno, who shared it with me via Twitter. So we are going to be, I guess, let me just put it to cloning. And then we are going to have a look at the README in the meanwhile. Suspense ready React router. Okay, so it's a React router that supports the suspense. This is like one of the APIs that I haven't really seen used that much in a while, which is, I mean, I guess, it shows because it's not exactly the easiest API out there to use, and it's quite a bit hidden, I guess I would put it this way. I still haven't used it myself because most of the stuff like, I don't know, the Apollo client or whatever, they cover all of that loading and prefetching and everything by using basic hooks essentially. So we're going to see if the suspense is going to get more widespread as the React team releases the suspense for data essentially, because this is sort of the main thing that is missing right now, right? Anyway, so what do we have here? We got installation. Okay, we got basic usage, parent component, child component, path. So you give path to components. So how does that work? Default export is a function that creates a router component to be used in your application. Oh, so you wrap it in a routes function and then give it your components with a path property. Interesting. I mean, that's not like I definitely prefer the React router approach, which is the composing things, but I guess this is also one of the ways to do that. And this is, yeah, so it basically just does them in a nested way, very similar to how the React router 6 will work once they rework the whole thing, because right now doing stuff like this in there is a pain in the ass, let's be honest. Like React router 5, it is not easy to do that. It's very annoying. Nice to have that immediately. So blah blah blah. Okay, current location. This is, so far it's really straightforward. This seems very nice. So you have strict and you have a loose matching. Okay, so strict matching means that it will match exact. Okay, so this is exact matching, and then the loose matching I assume is basically gonna match anything. Parent will render on anything. All right, so this is basically. So how do we define strict matching? So instead of matching all routes, we'll only match that have at least one segment. If you want to match all routes, you have to omit path prop. Wait a second. Root elements do not have. Oh, okay. So if you don't have any children, then it will only match the strict way. And if you have children, it will be the loose matching. Can you specifically say I want to actually loose matching? Blah, blah, blah. Instead of matching all routes, only. Okay. Doesn't seem like that. So this is like one of the things that I am not sure I'm sold off. Like, you often try to add this sort of smart logic and try to simplify things as much as possible for user, but what usually happens, and what I see in this case, is that you take the control away from the developer, right? So in this case, that's like, I think I already had quite a few scenarios where I would need to specifically say that, okay, I have actually a nested component, but it should match more than one route, right? So I actually want it to be, I guess this kind of qualifies for it, but I would prefer to have a parameter to allow loose matching for nested components, and just separate parameter essentially to control that, because that seems just more flexible. And then maybe the default behavior, just leave it the same as here. But this is sort of, a nitpicking, I guess, at this stage. Trailing slashes, slash always matches with the trailing slash. The dot always matches the path without the trailing slash. Okay, a bit confusing, but fine. That's like, you know, if it works consistently, then it's perfectly okay. So we got params, that is your typical parameter. You got hooks for params, that's always nice to see. All right. Okay, so you can use params in a nested way. That's very nice, very handy. Right, splats. The part of path that was not matched is called the splats. There's a use splat hook for unmatched path of the URL. Oh, interesting. So you can even get the unmatched sections, essentially. That's pretty neat. Okay, I dig that. We got history and locations. Okay, so it uses its own, so it gives the same like history location stuff as the React router. Very similar. We got the fragments. Okay, so you can use the fragments to do to wrap it all in the sort of nice hierarchy to render things next to each other. We got redirects. Again, that works very similar to React router. That's fine. Okay, now here. So you start by saying that, hey, this is my React router that basically supports suspense. And the most important bit in here, the suspense, is like in the middle of the README. That should be at the very bottom, right? Because the routers is something that is very common right now in the React world. And well, almost everyone knows how they work, and almost everyone will kind of expect most of those API to be in there, right? But this is the interesting bit. This is the bit that should be right on top saying, hey, this is how you use this with suspense. So in my opinion, this is something that should be like right on top and showing that, hey, this is how you start. And probably suspense should be included into most of those examples to show what. So in this case, it seems like the suspense is used on the top level. So basically it will wait for the whole router to load. What is wrong with me? For the whole router to load is what I'm trying to say. And does it support nested suspense routes is what I'm asking. So fetch, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it has a separate property for data fetching, which I guess, so it seems like it doesn't support suspense per route, which I guess is not really that important. But then again, why would I need a router if it just suspends the whole app? Like the whole point of suspense is supposed to be that when you suspend like specific part of app, wait for it to load and then render it once it's ready, right? So suspending the whole thing seems a bit strange to me, but I'm not, like, maybe I'm just missing something. As I said, you know, I never actually used suspense in my app so far because I just haven't seen a need for that. All right, there's an example for sticky navigation. That is perfectly fine. Router options. Okay, so you can give some additional options to it as the first argument. That's a bit confusing. So the first argument is either an options or the components. Yeah, that could be confusing. I would, like, you know, again, this is like personal preference API design, but I would basically make it consistent and add the options at the end because it's just more straightforward, right? And you don't have to move things back and forth. But that's just my opinion, I guess. So, you know, like, it's, if it were, as long as it works, it's perfectly fine. Okay, so we got route config. Okay, like README seems pretty solid. Again, you know, I would move the suspense to the very top since it's sort of the selling point of the router, but let me just fire up a new window. Let us have a look at the code itself right now, right? So we got, no, that is, can I get, where's my code review? There we go. And can I get the React Sprout folder? I miss React a lot. So what are you working in right now? Okay, let's see the project folder. View. Come on, View is also very nice. Okay, so project BxJS. So we are using tabs here. There is a prettier C that says tabs true, tab width 4. Okay, that's perfectly fine. 009. Okay, cool. That's perfectly fine as well. So we got ESLint source. We got Babelength debug. Okay, so this is this unit test. That's always great to see. And there's a roller for build. What the hell is that? I never heard about that bundle. Okay, we learned something new. All right, so the there's no dependencies. There's peer dependency for React. So one, like, straight away, this should be specific version. Like, this won't work with older versions of React that do not support suspense, right? This should be your minimum version that is in the peer dependencies. Because I can almost guarantee that if your project becomes popular, there will be people who will come with the legacy versions of React and try to use it and will be very surprised when it stops working. So this is kind of one thing you definitely should have in here is have React version fixed to the one that supports suspense. This is also very weird. Like, what is... This seems like a git commit or something? I guess... Wait, when was this released? Okay, so this last commit yesterday. I'm pretty sure suspense is already shipped in React. So why are you not using the latest version React? That seems a bit weird. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a specific reason for that. So if there is, and if you are watching it, then do let me know, because I am quite curious as to why you would opt into using that instead of actually using the latest React version. What are peer dependencies? Peer dependencies is basically saying my project is... so when you install this project, you also have to install this package, but it's not a direct dependency because it kind of has to be next to it, right? So this is sort of... This is what peer dependencies in a kind of approximated description mean. All right. So, I mean, this is the React router, which means it depends on React, but not directly, right? So it should be used together with React is what it says. Okay, BxJS looks fine. Let's have a look at the index. Okay, so this is just a bunch of exports. So it exports... right, okay. One thing is, like, if you export everything as a named export, why use defaults from the beginning? So why not just export star from whatever and then use the named export in there, which, you know, that will simplify the code a bit since you're exporting the named exports anyway. But again, it's a very minor nitpick. So we got prettier, ignore. Why would you ignore readme? Like, that seems like prettier does a pretty good job at formatting markdown. So I'm a bit confused as to why you would opt into ignoring the markdown. But I mean, this is, you know, not exactly the constructive criticism. Let's put it this way. So we got the ESLint node browser. We got ESLint recommended. We got some custom rules here. All looks pretty good. Babel with preset env and preset react. All right, so that looks fine as well. So let us have a look at the code. It even has the VS Code. Okay, so there's the, seems like the node attached to backend. So this is the debugging config, it seems. And we got the actions for the GitHub. One is the build action, which runs the test and build. That's always awesome to have. And the other one is npm release, which publishes the thing to npm. That's also great. So like, this is like, GitHub Actions make it incredibly easy to publish stuff on npm, like without, you know, direct interaction with the source code. All right. So what do we have here? I guess I can close this for now. So this is the source index file. We got React, we got path, we got pending context, history context, location context. So there is immediately, I see unused variable. While this is not terrible, you typically should not have them because, you know, it's just harder to read if you have like a ton of unused variables in the code. So, okay, we got a bunch of other utilities imported, pop, push, place, constants, mock use transition to support React without use transition. What is use transition? Is that like a new hook that I have not heard about? Wait a second. React use transition. This is probably something new that is coming to React. Concurrent UI patterns. Okay. Not okay. So this is experimental use transition. React offers the build use transition hook to help with this. Live demo, suspense. Okay, so this is the suspense for data part that is not yet shipped. And you polyfill it. Interesting. So, okay, so it says pending, then transition, executes, and then gives you... Okay, so it's basically just a polyfill for use transition hook for the React versions that don't have it. Again, I don't know if it's like... on one hand, I get the idea of polyfills, right? On the other hand, right now it's an experimental thing and it's going to come out soon-ish. So I don't know, maybe in your case, it would be better to focus on shipping the version with it and just say, okay, the minimum React version, supported React version is this. So you actually have to use the React that supports it. And for now, use this experimental versions that I assume this is exactly why you are using them now, because you need this use transition hook, right? All right, anyway, we are continuing. We got, so this is the main routes wrapper that takes in the arguments. That is routes options. Okay, so first is routes and then is options. But that's not what was in the documentation, right? So the docs showed that you, where's the options? Where's the config? Wait. There you go. No, this is not it. Wait. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Come on. I remember seeing it somewhere. There you go. So this is you say that, okay, we got the router options, and then you first pass options, and then you pass components. But this deconstructs it in a different way. Or is it? Wait a second. Pop. Pop is from the end. Right, okay. So I'm just forgot how the array pop works. Okay, good. That's a bit confusing. So I'm like, you could rewrite that into, like, why not just do this? Like, really? You could just do that, right? That is like so much cleaner. That's it. You don't even need that. And you could even use, like, okay, maybe deconstructing it inside of the arguments will be a bit more dirty, but you know. So this just makes it so much cleaner and nicer to read, in my opinion. Maybe he works with a node that doesn't support default values, but this is a React package, right? So, and it uses Babel, so it precompiles everything. And it uses optional chaining, which is a feature that came way after the default values. So I think this is just a lot cleaner than, you know, trying to pop the arguments and doing all of that kind of stuff. Since you are using only 2 arguments anyway, this is going to be a lot nicer to work with, basically. Okay, so we get the root window. The root window is equal window. So I guess this is, so this will die if you try to use it with a server-side rendering, right? Because there's no window, or you actually have to polyfill it in some way. This is something that should be mentioned. Can be used for server-side rendering to set the path. Okay, but right, so this can be used on server-side to set the path. Oh yeah, I actually screwed it up. It should be options and then, right, because I would prefer the first way, as I said. So it says it can be used in server-side rendering, but it will still look for window and fail if the window is not there. Which is, yeah. Doesn't JS already have exception types? I think there are some exception types, but okay, anyway, so reference error, root location. Okay, so if location is not specified, it tries to get it from, okay, so if it's specified, it basically uses it as URL. Otherwise, it uses the local host for some reason. I guess for debugging purposes, which is fine. And then, okay, so, and then if the location is not specified, it tries to get it from window. Again, so, you know, that means that window is actually not really required so long as you pass the history and location, which means that it shouldn't fail here if those 2 are specified, right? So this seems like a bit of a, and document. Okay, so 3 things you have to pass to make it work with the server-side rendering, but it's a bit illogical, let's put it this way. All right, so then we do pre-process routes. So what does this, where is this coming from? Okay, pre-process routes, this is routes is valid elements. Okay, so it checks if it's a valid React element. Then it uses the React routes from React element, okay. Okay, so this element, if it's undefined, then we just get empty array. If it's an array, then we map create routes from element, and it checks if it's a valid element again, which at this stage should not be required, right? So basically it's either array or an element, which means that this can be actually removed from here because you're doing the same job like twice. Catch error, kind of error. No, I don't think that's a construct that actually works in JavaScript. Okay, so children. Okay, so basically children to our element props children. So this gets children and then iterates through the children. It feels like you could just, if it's a single element, you could just why would you? It's a bit weird. So you run this function. Oh, okay. So this is the exactly same function. Right. Okay. So it's a recursive function, and if it's an element, it iterates through the children. If it's not an element, it will basically, depending on an element type, do. Okay. So if it's a redirect, this is a redirect handling. And then we got the path. We got the render. Yeah, some comments would not hurt. Like this is. There are some comments over here, and it's not terribly complex so far, but in this case, you have the recursive function that handles the children and creates routes, but how? What happens? So in this case, this is a special handling for redirect, and if it's not redirect, what does it do? It seems like it just recursively calls itself and returns. What is so route is a new object. Okay, so it converts the React elements into objects with some properties. Okay. Yeah, that definitely some comments on what the hell is happening here would be very helpful. Right, so back to the processing route. So we create these routes. Now this is an object, I guess, array of objects that contain routes. Transition route order. So this maps, okay, takes the route if routes undefined. Okay, so if there are nested routes, it runs the self on it. Why? Okay, all right. So it runs the sort. Okay, so it sorts them. All right, so it sorts them with some way. I mean, we can have a look at the. Let me just fix this function. So again, some comments would be nice, basically, as to why this is required and why this happens, basically. Okay, sorting object prop fun. What is prop fun? I guess it's a function that returns a property. Hey Sandeep, welcome. Hey Fabio, welcome. All right, so it creates the map, iterates over the object, sets the object, and scores it based on the property, and then sorts them by that score it creates. Okay, that seems relatively straightforward, but again, some comments as to what the hell is happening here would be nice. Scoring function is... Okay, so it uses these flats, params, and static segments to do that. Do something about using GraphQL and Deno. No, I have not done anything with regards to GraphQL and Deno so far, but maybe we'll do it we will do it at some point. Okay, anyway, so we got this sorted route here. Again, I find it that, reusing variables is fine, but it's usually a lot more readable if you actually rename them, like create new ones. So in this case, we get the route elements over here, right? So this is going to be route elements, and I guess I would actually write it in a simpler way. So I would say if it's not a valid, right? Then no, wait, we cannot actually do that because we still process that. Okay, right, then it's perfectly fine. Routes elements. So we say, okay, routes is this. Then we say sorted routes, right? And then we're gonna say routes. And then here, this is gonna use sorted routes, and this is gonna be result routes. And now, even just from the variable names, you already know what is happening, right? So we get the elements, we get the routes back, which is, I guess, we can call it routes objects, right? Then we sort them, and then we get the resulting routes that use transformed path, whatever that does. So let's have a look here. So it takes the route. Why do you, like, one of the questions I have is, why do you, every time you copy the object? So this is not a cheap operation, right? Why not just mutate the object that you have in memory, because you mutate the array anyway? Like, it doesn't seem like you use it anywhere else. So why not just do this on the route itself, right? Instead of this, and just do that and basically change the object itself, which is going to be a lot cheaper and faster than what you do here by copying it all the time. I mean, I guess I get immutability, I get the functional programming thing, but it's just not efficient in this case. Okay, maybe I'm wrong and maybe there is some reason for that. But again, if there is, this should be here in the comment explaining why this was here. So, you know, like copy because, like, I don't know, copy to new object because blah, blah, blah. So this is kind of the point of comments, right? They should explain why this has happened, because in a lot of cases, it's not clear why this is a thing. Like, you know, if you're looking at this like me, like first time, you see this and think like, okay, why would I need that when I can just do that, right? And that will work and probably does exactly what you want. Maybe not, but again, then explanation is warranted in this case. Okay, so we got, so this takes path and changes, but it on, okay, so it also calls itself on the nested routes if there are any, got it. So we take path, and then if it's a string, we do matcher by description, matcher by regex, matcher by function, and matcher by undefined. Okay. So what is description? Description, oh boy, okay. Another one, like another function that is pretty damn complex. So it's not just, so it returns a new matcher. First of all, this is not a matcher, but it's a function that returns a matcher, right? So this should be called differently. So it should be called like create matcher by description, and this should be the match. This one is the matcher by description, right? Actually, by descriptor. So this is actually how it should be. Okay, so it takes the path, it takes the base, it says if it's strict. So you already have the ability to bake in like loose strict matching in your code. So you just have to expose it to the user as API, which is what I was talking about when I was reading the README, right? Okay, past join, so we got this decorator, okay. While descriptor part length, so we take the first one, we check if it's empty. If it's empty and there's nothing left, then we're done. If there is still something and we're strict, we shift again. Why? Okay, again, this part I don't like just by reading this, I don't get why this is a thing. So you shifted twice into a new thing? And what happens if this if doesn't trigger? I guess you continue, right? And then if it's just path, what happens if you... Okay, this is... So this, again, this is a part that needs comments. A lot of comments. Right, okay, I kind of get it. So this basically, this and this parses the arguments, right? So this will be param names, param values. And this parses the stars, which is the catch-all thing. And else it just basically shifts it and adds it to the... Yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense, but man, some comments would be very, very helpful over here. Okay, splat undefined, splat blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we split it into splat params and length. Return that. I'm not going to save that. We got matcher by regex. Okay, so this just uses a regex. Again, this should be called create a matcher by regex, and this should be the matcher by regex. But I already said that. Using while, don't drag the performance. No, why would it? I mean, in this case, the while was pretty small, right? Because your URL parts are typically very short. You should use a pattern for that. Well, what do you mean by pattern? Like, pattern matching would obviously be better, but in this case, I don't think it's going to work because the processing is quite complex. Okay, match regex. So if there's a match from regex, okay, that's just straightforward regex matching. And then there's the function. Okay, so I assume this just executes the function. Yeah, so this returns the function as is. And the undefined matcher is literally just nothing. Well, there's actually, okay, so it replaces the starting slash with, splits them by slash, and that's it. Okay, so it's like super, that's not really undefined, right? So it's like, oh, I guess this should be called default matcher, right? This is what it is. So it means if there's no path, then we're going to be doing the default matching. But yeah, again, this is slightly confusing name. Okay, so we did that. We transformed all of that. We returned the routes. Okay, going back here. So this is our routes now. Already processed ones. Path, calculate path. Okay, so I assume this will, yeah, so this from location takes the path name, search, and hash. Although, isn't there a existing variable like this in the window location? Isn't it href? No, it's not href. there is, wait a second, there is definitely, I mean, I guess you could use href and then remove the main. Okay, but maybe, yeah, maybe it's easier to just concatenate them like this. Maybe I'm overthinking that. All right, cool. So we got the path, the route element. So I guess this converts the route elements, routes, right, route objects into a React element, right? While true, try return, create, okay, so this is, why is there while true here? Because this return is gonna interrupt it immediately, right? And if there's an error, it's also gonna either rethrow or what's the purpose? When we redirect it to new URL, we should check to see if the URL was already encountered before, as to prevent an infinite loop with redirects. We keep an array of all visited paths to prevent this. With this, we can also improve the reporting, as we can specify how infinite loop redirects came to be. Right, okay, so this is the old redirects. And is it a recursive function again? I don't see it being called again. So why, again, you know, there's this comment, which is extremely helpful, by the way. And then there's a while loop that basically says nothing as to why is it here, because you break out of it immediately if everything goes correct by using this create route element, which I assume is not a recursive function. Okay, so this literally creates this route component with parameters destructed from the, or I guess extracted from the route object, and that's it, right? So why would you, I don't get it. I don't get why there is a while true over here. It just feels a bit weird. Anyway, okay, so we create this route elements and then we return. Okay, so this returns a new component, which is a React component that uses hooks. Okay, again, you only use this here, so why not just do that? That's just a lot cleaner. Add other suspend options like, okay, this is a to-do, that is fine. But yeah, again, I would just use the default props because it's just nicer and communicate the intent immediately. Then we got the use state. Okay, so we got the action set mounted elements, a bunch of stuff, location, use memo. So this is location stuff, history. This is a memo for history. So he constructs the history right here. Go back. Yeah. Okay. And it's based on the root history that you pass in. I wonder why this is needed. Why not just use the root history that you have? Push state, this navigate. I guess because you have to hijack this navigate thing, right? This is probably the reason. And navigate does execute navigation, set action, set history state, set document title, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What is this? Subscribe to pop state events. Okay, so this is when you navigate back basically, right? Action pop. I wonder why you need to specifically store this action. And since the action seems to affect all the other states, why not do that as a single reducer? Because that would be quite more efficient and probably easier to follow. Because like here, you change all of them. Here, you change most of them. So why not just have one reducer that does all of that, or even just a state that is an object, right? Because like, what's the reason for splitting it into 4 states when you update them simultaneously anyway? So I can create the path. We create another route element. Okay, subscribe to pop state event from routes. I don't know, like that seems. So if the path is not current, so if the path is changed, we recreate the route element again. That does not seem very efficient, but okay, sure, fine. Okay, root window. So we listen to pop states and then we unsubscribe on whenever the effect is demounted. All right, use layout effect. Okay, set history length. Update history length state, because we could not know it in advance as a pop state could be fired. The history item in the middle of the stack. I'm not sure I get why this is needed, so I guess it's used somewhere. What's this history length? Where are we using that? Okay, not here. So it's not used anywhere here at all, right? So it's only set. And then it basically changes within this history thing. But I guess we're passing this history to the history context provider. So maybe it's used in the other components. Okay, we're going to see. Right, so we went through that stuff, I think. Now, okay, I guess we can just, so this is just context, and element is what is built, right? Element set element is, yes, this is the create route element. This is exactly the thing where we already looked for. Okay, so there's a bunch of additional hooks and components. Right, you know what? I mean, it's... I probably could spend another hour looking at that and still don't quite get what is happening, because this project lacks comments a lot. Like, the code quality is actually pretty good, and in most cases, you know, the nitpicks I had are like completely opinionated. But it is a very complex project, and there is simply not enough explanation as to why some things are done in the way they are. So it's really, really hard to navigate through that, and it's really, really hard to actually read it and give any comments, because in most cases, I just don't understand what's going on. And it will probably take me a long time to actually figure out what the hell. And there's, you know, the stuff like unused imports, but that's not critical. Okay, I think that will be enough for this project. Let us go to the next one. So what do we have? The next one is, React Suspense Router, another one. From Daishi, from shared on Twitter. So let us jump into this suspense router and check out if we can get through it in a nicer manner, I guess. Somehow the whole suspense router thing seems to be very popular in the community lately. So let's see if this one is any good. So let's start with README as usual. So we got React Router for React Suspense and render as you fetch. Okay, so this basically already gives the proposition right away. Render as you fetch pattern is mind-blowing. Okay, so this links to the suspense explanation. That is perfect. Combines React Router is... Okay, so this actually combines existing React Router and some other libraries to give you this suspense support, which is something I really dig. Right, so usage. And it immediately has suspense, so 100 points. This is what should have been demonstrated in the previous router in the README right on top, because it was also boasting the suspense thing, right? Okay, so we got browser router. Okay, so the API seems to be relatively similar to, I mean, I guess it is a React router, right? So we're gonna check in a moment. Link. Okay, so this essentially seems like it's a wrapper for React router that just adds suspense capabilities to it, right? It does add some additional documentation here. So it adds this fetch data property that basically allows you to lazily fetch the data. Okay, got it. That seems pretty neat. So it also seems to be written in TypeScript with some JavaScript. Interesting. So, okay, uses Yarn. That's fine. We got the custom Webpack config. That is a thing I haven't seen in ages, but that's perfectly fine. So dear XTS, okay, we got development, cheap model eval. Okay, so this is your run-of-the-mill Webpack config. We got HTML Webpack plugin for, I guess this is a demo. Yeah, examples, perfect. TypeScript loader with React Suspense Router. Okay, yeah, so this is your very typical Webpack config. We got TypeScript setup. This is the README we just had a look at. So Alpha 11, okay, that's fine. Uses microbundle to build stuff. Really awesome bundle, by the way, bundler. But wait a second. So it uses Webpack for... Oh, I guess it uses Webpack for examples, because the setup is quite a bit more complex. And then microbundler to just build the app itself, which is, I mean, you know, I guess it's a viable option to do that. But if you're dragging in Webpack, why not use it for everything? But that's just, you know, small personal nitpick, I guess. React Router DOM 6. Oh, no, I cannot wait for the 6th release. It has so many awesome features here. Okay, and then it uses the fork of React Router. Interesting. So there's some modified version of it. Okay. Depends on React and history as pure dependencies. And direct dependencies are those React Suspense Fetch and React Tract. What is React Tract? I never heard about that. Oh, it's also his library. Interesting. Simple and fast global state with React context. Eliminate unnecessary renders without hassle. Interesting. So create container. Okay, and use track. Okay, so it's like global state management, essentially, kind of thing with performance improvements. Okay, got it. Straightforward. License change log. That is very nice. Travis, git ignore, ESLint. Okay, cool. So this so far seems straightforward. Let us have a look at the code here. All right. So what are those? Oh, right. Okay, probably. I mean, the TypeScript will complain because it cannot find modules. So let me just, I guess, install that stuff. Yarn, please. There you go. So once it installs the packages, we should be able to get rid of all the errors and warnings. Come on. Man, I am so salty that they delayed VSL 2. I was already hoping that this week I will be working on a VSL that is 5 to 6 times faster and works better with like Docker and stuff, but no, they had to delay it until end of the month. Anyway, back to our stuff. So we got React component type. We use the router and router props from React router, and we're going to be using it as a router or rig. Okay, then we export a bunch of components. All right, so why does it import the router and router props here? Does it do something with them? Const router or rig as component type, router props, and oh, okay, so this is just the typing thing, I guess, for the at least it looks like the typing thing for the TypeScript. But I'm not a TypeScript expert. I'm not a God, why is it so hard to say? I'm not a TypeScript expert, so I'm not gonna say anything about that. Talking is hard, you know. All right, so we got export routes, export use routes. Okay, so there's some overrides essentially for custom things, right? And yeah, so it re-exports a lot of stuff from React Router DOM, and then basically adds some customized things on top of that. Very nice way of doing that. Pretty awesome. So let's start from the beginning, I guess. So we got this routes thing, which is all right, let's see. So we got this, we got history, we got, okay, what does this do? Where is the routes? Where's the exported thing actually? What does this do? Export const routes, React component, props, children, routes, create routes from children. Okay, so this is what is the important bits here? So create routes from children is a function that comes from the original React router. Okay, and then use routes is, I assume, the custom function here. Okay, is SSR, use SSR. Otherwise, it uses this function. So it even has the support for SSR baked in, which is quite convenient. Right, create routes from array. You see how the naming here basically explains what is happening? Like even without the documentation, proper naming for functions and variables can make it very easy to read the code. So in this case, it is very well structured. So I can basically say, okay, hey, so this function, it creates routes from an array of partial routes that are, they're originally given in. And yeah, so we got the listen, use listen, so location listen, okay. Base name, okay, so what does this actually do? This is all like setup. We got the reference, we got the effect. So this effect subscribes to the location changes. Consume cached route data map. Assume hydration. Okay, so this is basically the SSR checks. Match routes, okay. Again, this is already getting complex and there's not enough comments explaining what's happening. So this is the same problem, even though the code here is a lot better and the naming for variables and functions are a lot better. It's still really hard to understand what's going on without a few additional comments that explain basically what the hell is going on. Because like, okay, here we got this one comment and it already explains that this if is actually here for hydration time, and that in hydration, during the hydration, this code won't run, right? But bailout, why bailout? What is happening? So it's, yeah, it's a bit hard to read. Okay, that is a ton of stuff here happening. So I assume that this is the SSR bit of it. It's a lot simpler because I guess you don't have to account for route changes and things like this. Consume, okay, so there's our consume cache route map. What does it do? Cache window as unknown as base name. So we got base name, delete. Okay, so basically just tries to delete the window base name if there is a variable, I guess. Okay, get cached. Okay, so this just reads from it. And this does what? So this is takes the matches, props as fetch data. Again, so like this, you know, when you get into functions that have a lot of logic, but not a lot of, how do you put it? So basically, there's a lot of logic that is not well explained through variables, which is a lot of times really hard to do. Like, let's be honest, right? It gets really hard. Like, this is just a wall of code, and it's probably going to take me like 20-30 minutes to actually figure out what's going on here. So I'm not going to spend time on this. This needs comments, right? Attach route data. Okay, so I guess this just, judging from the name, it takes the data and attaches it to the route, which I guess the route data map is exactly used for that. Okay, so route data map is a thing that is used to attach the data to the specific route, and we figured it out from the function names, but that should have been in the comments somewhere around here, right? And then this basically creates, I guess, instantializes the route data map, and this allows you to attach it to the specific route. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, we got this route data context that uses this React tract for creating of the context. Okay, so what is actually happening here? We got use selector and then use route data. Okay, what is going on here? Create container. Okay, so this is basically just reuses the React tract library to pass something around via context. Again, not enough documentation, so it's like data. What is this data? Route data provider. Set notify data object. Okay, where is this used? It doesn't seem like it's used anywhere. Oh, it exported. Okay, so I guess it's used in the other file. All right. And then use data. Okay, so basically this allows you to wrap the data into the context provider and then consume it within routes using the hook. All right, perfect sense. Again, some docs would be nice because it does take quite a few seconds to figure out what's going on. Fetch data. Okay, so this is our data fetching. It exports two things. The first one is the fetch data, which is the generic that takes in a fetch function and returns the fetch data, which is an object. Okay, match prefetch. Okay, so this seems to be like running prefetching on the using the fetch function, and the match, I assume this is like the route match. Again, some documentation as to what the hell is this would be nice, because it doesn't look like React components. It seems like just a function that does something. And it's a bit hard to figure out what without seeing it applied. And then we got the lazy version of it that returns, that takes in a factory that is a function that returns a promise. Oh boy, okay. Yeah, that definitely needs some comments as to what the hell is this. Yeah, this is going to be hard to dissect without any any description. Basically, this is just complex. Okay, right. So we did look through that. Okay, so yeah, it basically seems like it just gives you a way to augment the React router with all that stuff. And again, as I said, you know, this code base is a lot better than the previous one, purely because the naming of variables and functions is pretty good. But it still misses a lot of comments, and if you are not a person familiar with all of those things and, you know, the suspense and what is happening in this project, it's going to take hours to actually figure out the whole code. So some comments would be very nice. Like, the cool thing is that there are comments on the exported API, essentially, so they actually would give you nice suggestions when you import and use the library, which is a good start, I guess. Okay, cool. That should be enough. Again, I don't want to spend too much time trying to figure out what is going on with there, because, you know, it's just please add comments to your projects. It just makes it incredibly hard to read for a person who comes who just basically checks out your project and tries to read the code. All right. Not really a framework from vpool. All right. I think he shared it on Twitter as well. So let us clone this project. Right, so we did that. We got 3 more left. I think like it's probably gonna take an hour more, but I would want to finish all of them today. So if you are interested, stick around. So let's see. Not really a project. Let us see. Not really a project. No, that's not what it's called. Not really a framework. All right, an experimental node framework designed towards the goal of almost no dependency build. Question 1, framework for what? So is that an HTTP framework? Is that a bot framework? Is that a messaging framework? Is like framework is a very generic term, right? So if you're gonna write a description for your project, be precise. Like tell me what it does. After reading this one-liner, I don't know what is this. And this is like the biggest, like one of the biggest issues with the people who just get into open source, because they usually write descriptions and they never, like for them, they make perfect sense. Which, you know, it's always like this when you create your own project. You think, okay, this makes perfect sense. Everyone will understand it. But if you come back in a week or a month and try to reread your descriptions, it's going to make you go like, wait, what? And this is exactly what happens now, right? So like node framework that does what? Like, okay, no dependency, I get it, but I assume it's HTTP framework, I guess. Let's try to read more. So not really a framework. What it is: lightweight node framework that provides an alternative to most of the tools out there like Express, Fastify, and so on. Just kidding. So kidding or not? So I guess it's an HTTP framework, right? If it says that it's like Express, Fastify. The intent of this project is mostly for learning purposes. Or an example implementation of most of the big guns out there. Is designed to keep in mind it can be intimidating for people to take a look under the hood. Okay, so sort of aims to be a HTTP framework that is very small, lightweight, and is built in a way that people can learn from it, right? I get it. Okay, cool. So applications, small to medium sized projects which you might be hacking together on a weekend. Works immensely well for those because it's lightweight, extensibility. So some proofreading here would be nice. Like, it's not terrible, but there are some very basic errors that are really easy to fix if you just double read it and be done with it. So it's like always proofread your readmes. There are like, I mean, there's Grammarly, right? So like very, very, very simple service. You just go in there, you log in. I think I have my login here. No, continue. Yes, come on. You take your readme and you throw it in there and you will get, come on, what is happening now? They needed to allow 25 more things to load. I know you can load, come on. Password is oh, come on now, god damn it. Anyhow, just throw it into some proofreading tool. There's like a ton of them out there. And they will tell you what exactly you can fix because, well, there's some obvious things here that should be fixed and it's very easy to fix, why not? Okay, getting started. Current no useful documentation is available for the project. I'm actively working on that. In the meantime, if you're one of the brave ones, look into examples directory. Okay, open up example.js. All right. The LDR. Motivation for this came from constant new issues of the NPM ecosystem. Citation needed. What issues? As this started catching fire, I tried looking at the Inside Express Git repo, and it was very intimidating. I started building this to get ideas on how things might work. Okay, yeah, sure. Features: create app using an rough object, get requests, post requests, write headers and send responses, middleware support, additional features. Okay. Fine. So again, as I said, proofreading is definitely something that is warranted here. A better description of framework for what it is. Again, you know, after reading the description, I get that this is a HTTP framework, right? Lightweight server framework. Okay, this is better. So this should be in the description of the Git repo. License ISC. Is this the same license as it here? No, it's MIT license here. So please be consistent. If you create an MIT license in the project, put MIT over in your package.json as well. Ecstatic. What is ecstatic? So it has dependencies. It has no dependency build, but it says still uses. Okay, that is not ecstasy. Yes, this is exactly what I'm searching for. What is ecstatic? Simple static file server middleware. Okay, so it's file server and it's unmaintained. Okay, I mean, that's fine. It's okay to use stuff like this, but you know, it's better to, if you are building something from scratch, then why not build a static file serving as well? But anyway, okay, so we got the node engine specified, we got the lib and ref as entry points, and we also got index for some reason. So if you're specifying the main entry point as lib and ref, why do you have index? That's just like side note, I guess. Team, sorry, gotta go. Have to attend the meeting. Yeah, sure, man. Thank you for dropping by. Talk to you on Discord as usual. All right, continuing. We got this. Okay, so again, unused variable. Get colors defined but never used. This might as well be killed, right? So we got app, we got path. Okay. So nref, this is our main export. So it takes a static file path, and if there is any, it creates this ecstatic thing. Okay. Again, if you're building everything from scratch and you are saying no dependencies, well, then should be no dependencies, right? So one thing is I would add pre-tier RC and ESLint for some consistent formatting. Like you seem to be using 4 spaces for formatting, which is perfectly fine. But if I try to save this now, my pre-tier will screw everything up because I have 2 spaces set up. So, you know, add something that basically makes your style consistent. Okay, rest right. So ecstatic. Wait a second. Oh, okay. So if there is a static file path, it requires this one. If not, then it uses its own thing that basically just writes a JSON. Okay. And then we go to the app. All right. And then there's the helper as well. Let me just open all of them. So again, another unused variable, not critical, but it's just, you know, like, why is it there? It's just distracting and more stuff to figure out. Okay, that is, let's see. So formatting seems to be, there we go. This is like one of the things that, I think a lot of people who just start out coding, this is the problem they have. I've had it as well. Mixing spaces and tabs. So I can almost bet that this code was copied from somewhere, because whenever you copy code, you typically don't care about formatting and you just paste it as is, and codes like Stack Overflow or whatever typically tend to use tabs. So this ends up to having tabs and everything else has spaces. So let me just apply my pre-tier config and make the formatting consistent. Again, add pre-tier to a project. You will not regret doing that because it's just a lot easier to read when it's formatted for you. Okay, let's have a look here. So this is our constructor. It takes the ecstatic thing. There's router, there's middlewares, there's the view path, and there's this .app. Okay, this .app is the HTTP server that is created from the node HTTP package. So it parses the URL. Parsing and logging endpoint on the console. Like, you are already in the Git repo, so this should not be checked in, right? Like, I'm also guilty of doing stuff like this, just commenting out my console logs. But if you're using Git already, it's typically a good idea to just kill stuff because you can always roll back, right? If you need it, or find it in history. So it's generally a bad idea to commit commented out console logs. For users to get the URL, okay, so we got the URL, we got the query. We set the headers. Why do you set response header clients? I don't like that. Like, does any server actually? Wait a second. Now I'm curious. I might be wrong, but I thought that the client header is typically what you set on request from client, right? And this is not something you usually get from server. Yeah, there's no client headers in there. You might get stuff like, yeah, X GitHub request ID, X content, blah, blah, whatever, right? But client coming from server? That seems a bit weird. Like, what's the headers for fun? I mean, okay, for fun, I get it, right? But client header is not something you should be adding from server. Content type text HTML. What if you're not sending text HTML? So this should be, I feel like this should be configurable, right? And if I remember correctly, once you write the header, you cannot write it again, unless I am mistaken. Maybe I am mistaken. Maybe you can overwrite it, but I never tried to actually use it on a low level. So I typically use like Express, Fastify, whatever, and they typically complain if you try to do the same thing twice. Maybe it's a security thing integrated in them. Okay, rest send is rest write, status codes, JSON. Okay, so it's just like a helper methods that basically mimic what the Express does. There's the send file, read file. Okay, there is a custom read file function that is coming from the helper. Okay, again, tabs and spaces mixed. I'm gonna apply the prettier formatting here. So we got more unused variables. And I assume if I kill that, this is also unused. So it's like path is unused. All right. So there's our read file. Dear file name callback, file name string, file name length more than 0. Okay. Otherwise false. If it's false. So again, you know, I think the one of my favorite patterns is early return. So instead of nesting all of that, what you could do is you could just do this and say, if there's no file name, then you just return over here, and then you get less nesting and it's a lot easier to read, right? Again, console log, something you should not do here. Yeah, there's a lot of them actually here. I used to do that all the time as well, but then I figured out that, you know, Git is a thing that you can basically look back into at any time. So why would I commit that if I can just roll back whenever I want? Okay, otherwise it reads the read file with, so this is not gonna work. This is only gonna work on Linux systems, right? I already stepped on this a couple of times. So what you actually want to do is you want to say that file path is going to be equal path join, and then you join those two. So this will ensure that they are joined correctly across the platforms. As in, if you run it on Windows, it will use the \. If you run it on Linux, it will use the normal /, and then it will actually read it correctly. I think we don't import path, so this actually require path. There we go. Okay, in this way, it's, yeah, I mean, again, you know, if you know that you're only targeting Linux, that's perfectly fine, but that's just a bit nicer. Hey Sean, thank you for the follow. All right, so continuing. So this, yeah, so basically just reads the file. Again, using callbacks in 2020 is a bit, I would prefer promises, and there's a promisified FS API. So yeah. Apologies. Hey Wise, welcome to the stream. Hey Ron, welcome to the stream. How often do I commit? I usually commit as soon as I finish one specific atomic thing. So in this case, for example, I've reformatted the files, right? I would commit that. I've fixed this file path, I would commit that. If I would change this to promises, I would, so like, you know, one meaningful change that you can describe in a commit message. This is kind of, the more the better, essentially, to be honest. Like, not to commit every like symbol or line change, but, you know, if it's atomic and makes sense as to some fix that you can describe in a commit message, this is basically when you want to commit and push your stuff. You can always squash them. That's also true. You can always squash the history if you need to clean up it a bit. Anyway, so we got the file. So where were we? We read file. So yeah, here we go. Send file. So we read the file. Okay, so it tries to define the content type based on the extension, which I guess works. But again, there are better ways of doing that. Res render. Okay, this is the render file. Okay, this is another function. Again, the same thing. So I would do the early return here instead of come on. So if there's no file name, then you return, and then that's gonna make it 20 times nicer to read. Again, the same issue here with the pass join. So this is not going to work on the non-Linux machine. So you want to use pass join to make it cross-platform. Check for includes. What is this and where is it coming from? There we go. Check for includes string. So if there is string match include, oh, if it has include other HTML, what does it do? It seems to resolve the includes for other. Loop through all includes found, split into array, get the file, read the file, blah, blah. Right, so if you have include pragma for HTML, it will basically load it and replace it within the file. This regex is quite something. I don't know if it's a good idea to use a regex like this, but fine. So long as it works, that's perfectly fine. If you are using regexes that are as complex as this, you absolutely must have unit tests, because this thing is going to bite you in your ass at some point. And once it does, you want to have tests that you can expand and basically add more cases to ensure that all of them pass. Okay, so we got this check includes. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were at the render file, right? Render file. To do that, check for includes. Okay, we expand it and send it. Okay, interpolate HTML. What the hell does this do? String, type of string, false. Okay, again, no, I guess it's fine. Keys data for each key, data is on proper. Okay, so basically it's a very simple templating language here, which again, this regex, oh boy, this needs some unit tests. Like, this thing is gonna break at some point, and you need to have some tests to ensure that it works as you want it to work. Because regular expressions are never easy. Like, I still struggle with them, and I still have to write like 25 unit tests to make sure that it works exactly the way I want and there are no edge cases. Okay, so we did that, render, okay, on data. So this is the post handling, data from request, but doing it this way. So this means that we create this server once, right? Which means that this data from request is going to be one for all requests, which means that as soon as the data comes in, if there's a concurrent request, it's going to start mixing in weird, unpredictable ways. And so what happened, right? And this is not, so basically if you got the first request, it's going to write it here, and then the second request and all consequent requests are going to write to this, and every next post request is going to concatenate with the previous one, which is going to grow this thing endlessly. And this is basically, this is a memory leak, right? And you can just DDoS the server like this. So you wanna check this one, and you actually want to handle this on a session basis or something like this. Right, so we got the basic middlewares here that just do the okay, res on end, okay, match, listen, okay, everything else seems more or less straightforward. Gets, right, so this is the basic route mapping. Okay, yeah, so I mean, it's a pretty basic project, but I think I've described enough things to think about here, so we can get on to the next one. But yeah, I mean, it's a good starting project, but there is still a ton of work to do here. But don't stop, improve it, and you're gonna get there. All right, next thing we got here is from Ron, who was just here in the chat right now. And yeah, Wise, how much longer are you streaming today? I mean, I have 3 more projects left, so it's probably gonna be another hour or so. And yes, VOD is going to be on YouTube as usual, so you can just watch it later on. That is not a problem. Git clone. Let us clone this. So Ron, I hope you are ready for my criticism, which is, I don't know what's going to be. So, okay, we want strong hire published. Git checkout. Okay, git branches -a. Okay, we want this one, right? Git checkout strong hire published. Okay, cool. So we got this branch. Let me open it. That'll work extension. Okay. All right. Get ready for the slaughter. Well, I mean, okay. First of all, where's the README and where's the description? If there's no README, at least give me a description. What the hell am I looking at? Like, I assume this is some, okay, there's, all right, there we go. There's some stuff here. Like, don't be that lazy, just add a simple readme.md that says the same thing. Like, you know, just copy this stuff. This is enough. You don't have to be like super creative and super amazing about this. Just like doing that is really sufficient. And that is too many. Like, even this is already good, right? So this is a Strong Hire Application Assistant, Chrome extension by Strong Hire that helps you get hired. Okay. Version 0.5, manifest version 2. So we got some stuff. Okay, 4 tabs used. So 4 spaces for a tab used here, which is fine. We got some, yeah, okay. So this is your run-of-the-mill manifest. Okay, custom autofills. This Chrome extension has its own set of custom autofills. These autofills are created by the Chrome extension and mapped onto specific websites. This is a complete list of pre-existing and new autofills. So is this, I mean, I guess we're going to find out if this file is used anywhere or is just like an information for about the extension itself. If it's an information about the extension itself, this should be part of README, right? Some autofills. And you just put it here. If it's used somewhere, I'm just going to put it back. Then this is obviously a better place. Oh boy, no. Just going to do that. There you go. That's just a file when I was developing. Right, so I usually, like, if you describe stuff, put it in README. If you needed it at some point, chances are people who are reading your stuff are going to need to read about that as well. This is why just throw everything into README, then figure it out later. Okay, anyhow, we got pop-up and we got the jQuery for script. Okay, this is a content script and it inserts just jQuery. Okay, interesting. And we got the background script. Okay, so there's the backgrounds, there is the pop-up, and there is a content script. Okay. So, all right. First I mean, I guess it's fine, but you know, so like this is again one of the nitpicks. You are using 4 spaces here for a tab, and then you're using tabs here. And I don't know, if I open some other file, like you're using spaces here as well. Pick one and stick to it. Like, if you're using tabs, use tabs. If you're using spaces, use spaces. It's not critical, but it's really annoying when you have them mixed within one project. So it's like, it's really hard to figure out which ones to use and how to configure your editor. This is again the reason why pre-tier is so awesome, because you can just enable it, set a config, and then everyone is going to have the same formatting across the project. Anyway, background. Okay, so this is Chrome runtime on installed. So this is when the script is installed. Okay, there's some console logging, which is fine. Clears the storage synchronously. So why not use the async methods here? Because as far as I remember, they now have the promises stuff, so you can just do it, await them, which will not block the, I mean, I guess you're running in the background, so it doesn't really matter that much, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we set the form data, default profile, supported sites. Okay, so we store the default data. Then we add the event, like message listener that says, okay, exec autofill. And once we get it, we inject the content script. Okay, cool. Seems straightforward. So there's some default profile data. I guess this is like pre-fill data that later on should be you should be allowed to customize, which again is fine. Okay, pop-up. So what do we have here? Pop-up CSS. Okay, there's you usually want to have those in the extension, because if you have them in the extension, they're going to come pre-bundled and they're going to be loaded immediately, right? But if you insert them using the link and script tags, they will actually, this is like 4 additional HTTP requests that are absolutely unnecessary. And you even have jQuery included. So why not just load it from here? Like, come on. It's got to be just loaded from local files, right? So it's just like a minor optimization that will make things a lot easier for you. And will make your extension work faster, by the way. Okay, that's just, you know, again, a minor nitpick. I mean, it's not critical. If it's just for testing or learning purposes, then it's perfectly fine. I am lazy sometimes as well, and I sometimes do things like this too. So, you know. Okay, pop-up. CSS. Okay, CSS is super basic, nothing interesting. Okay, pop-up.js. So we got some jQuery. Man, I haven't used jQuery in ages, to be honest, and still, it's a very nice library. All right, so when document is ready, we execute script, content script. Wait. So why isn't it the same script that you inject? So you, whenever the pop-up is opened, you automatically inject the script, but you also inject it on the message. Okay. That's an interesting decision, and so we got bind collect, bind autofill, bind open settings. Bind collect is click from query tabs and message exact collect info. Is that? I guess that's not implemented because I don't see a handler for that, or maybe it's in a content script. Is it in a content script? Where does it send it actually? Wait a second. To tabs. Okay, so this is a content script message. Okay. Copy button on clicked, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we got this thing. We got text. Copy text. Focus select. Copy. Okay, so this copy is the text basically. Right, actually overlooked that. Well, that happens. It's like, you know, as the project grows, that's what tends to happen when you just have the same thing in multiple places and then you forget about that and then you get weird bugs. That is perfectly normal, but yeah, just, you know, double check that and kill one of those instances. Okay, autofill. All right, exec autofill. Okay, so this sends exec autofill to the tab, which means that this actually doesn't really matter because it doesn't seem to do anything, right? I don't see any message sent to the runtime. It's only sent to the tabs. And then we got, okay, this is the default profile, which I guess just renders the tab itself. Where is it used? Is it used anywhere? No, it's not. I guess, is it used somewhere here? No, it's not. Okay, so I guess this is just a bit of code that is never used, which I guess is also fine, but you know, if you have a dead code, it's a good idea to kill it. Disabled for now. Okay, so it's like a future feature. That's also perfectly fine. All right. Let's see. So we got that. Again, I think Chrome tabs query does support, let's have the async API, right? Because like as much as I'm okay with using the callbacks, does it have a promises API? No, it doesn't. Interesting. Wait a second. They still don't have a promise API. God damn it. I was just thinking that using promises would be so much cleaner here. Okay. I mean, I would essentially, you know, just rewrite that into. So what I would do is I would actually promisify those. I know that it's a bit of work, but it's just, in my opinion, a lot nicer to read those. So I would basically do something like this. I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess we can just do a permissify function. Let me see. You know what? Whatever. I mean, do you want me to permissify this? I could write it real in a like, you know, quick, dirty way just to show you. I mean, let's do it let's do it here. Why not? So we got this query thing. It's gonna be, it takes in opts and then returns new promise that is resolves right into that, and then it runs this with opts, and then it calls resolve over here. So instead of doing that, you would have this async, and it would say tabs await query, which will kill off this, and then you could do the same with send message. It's a bit surprising that the Chrome API still do not have a promisified version, because it's 2020 and like Chrome is one of the most modern browsers out there with like V8 driving essentially the node.js forward. But yeah. Okay, response equals await send message. I guess this has to be slightly different. Yeah, so I mean, it's, you know, it's already like twice as easy to read that, right? This obviously has to be, I guess, like this. Or I mean, maybe we just hard code that for tab ID opts, and then that's, you know what, that's fine. Something like this, basically. So removing the callbacks simplifies the nesting a lot. And yeah, you, like in this case, you have to like manually promisify all of that stuff, which is a bit annoying, but then you can, you know, create like a Chrome library or whatever, your own custom wrapper around that. But then your code is like 20 times simpler, right? Which is absolutely worth it, in my opinion. There you go. Okay. I mean, other than that, you know, it looks perfectly fine. Not gonna save that. Hey, Agnostic, welcome to the stream. All right, so background, we already had a look. Content script, so this is the interesting bit. Document ready. Okay, commented out code. Again, I already said about that. If you're using Git, there's no point in committing that. You can just remove it. If you need it, you can take it from history. Verify autofill support. Chrome sync get unsupported sites. Function results. Okay, unsupported sites, blah, blah, blah. Alert, add autofill. So here's the thing. Like, even though this runs, like, sort of supposed to run verification, it still runs the safe sites even if that fails, right? So if that fails, you'll just see an alert, but it still will try to run the consequent code. So if you're running any sort of verification, what you want to do is you want to actually either throw or return falsy values so that you can do other things. So it actually should, this should be, I mean, I guess we can use a callback in this case. Again, you know what? I'm gonna use promises. I just could not care less about using callbacks in 2020. Okay, so we got this resolve. Okay, in this case, we're gonna have both resolve and reject, right? And so I'm gonna put that into promise. So it's gonna be, again, a very stupid way to promissify this. And then if this doesn't support it, we're gonna reject it with, well, nothing. And then if it supports it, we're gonna resolve it. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say try, right? Verify this. Oh, wrap it all and try. I'm gonna catch an error. And if there's an error, we're gonna show an alert and say, hey, you're actually don't really work, right? So if this passes, it's gonna continue forward down this path and do the add autofill, save site, and so on and so forth. If it fails, it's gonna immediately break the workflow and go to this alert, which I think is a lot easier to follow and sort of makes a lot more sense because, you know, the way it was written before, it would still execute all of that REST code, even though it doesn't support the current website. So, yeah. All right. So let's see. Add autofills. What does this do? Add autofill. Where is it? There we go. So you have two functions. One of them called add autofills, and the other one is add autofill. You might want to rename them just a bit. That's just slightly confusing. Okay. Get supported sites from tab. Blah blah blah. Okay. So this takes the current tab, gets the supported sites. But you already got them here, right? Like this is, oh, unsupported sites. So you store supported and unsupported site. Well, wouldn't unsupported site be everything that is not in supported site? Because, like, I mean, if you're gonna, are you planning to like put the whole internet here in unsupported sites? Because it seems to me that what this should be is get this. So I'm just gonna rewrite this a tiny bit to make it a bit simpler, right? So you want to check if you can run your script on supported sites, right? So you got this unsupported sites, and then we got the URL, and what you want to do is say supported sites includes URL, right? So, and if it includes the URL you want to resolve, And otherwise, you wanna reject. This is literally all you need to do here, right? So I'm like, because I'm really confused as to why do you store unsupported sites? Pretty much trying to collect all job application sites. Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't be able to collect all of them, right? Imagine like this app running after whatever. So you want to check the support by just matching against the sites you know you support and just rejecting everything else. There's no way in a million years you're going to collect all unsupported sites in your extension. That's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that. And this way basically does the same, but based on the whitelist, which is a lot more flexible. So you actually can kill that and just check if you support it. And if you support it, then say, okay, we're good. And if it's not in supported sites, you get, hey, I don't know what is that. So we don't support that, right? And once you do that, so you actually, right, so they actually could be even easier than that. We could supported sites, could do it like this, right? And then so in this case, so this function will basically return us supported sites, right? We don't need the reject here. So what we do here is we just say, okay, supported sites is going to be await. Right, I forgot await here. And then here, for TED sites, what you're going to do is you're going to do it once, right? You're going to get the supported sites, and then you're just going to verify against them, and that's it. So, and then your functions suddenly become 100 times easier. Throw new error, unsupported site, right? Something like this. Something else I do a lot here in the Chrome storage sync get, I can promissify that too. Yes, sure, you can promissify that. So, I mean, I just, wrapped it in a promise here because I'm too lazy to extract it, but you could do the same way. So yeah, I would basically suggest doing that. So instead of, and we don't need this await here, you just get the supported site once, because then you don't have to trigger the storage every time and waste that precious milliseconds on triggering the storage. You just get them once and then you pass them, and then we got this add autofills function. Again, it's only asynchronous because it gets the supported sites. So if we say, okay, it takes supported sites as the argument, then we can do that, right? Which again decreases complexity quite a bit. And then instead of data, we can say that, okay, data is supported sites. There you go. So this function suddenly became 20 times easier to read. Let me think. Save site. So what does this do? Save site, where are you? Okay, visited sites. Okay, so it takes the visited sites. If it's not there, okay, fine. That's perfectly fine. Chrome runtime on message exec collect. So okay, and then we subscribe to this listen to info. Yeah, so you've seen what I refactored. I think it's just a bit nicer. Again, I would probably extract this into a separate function as well, so you just can, essentially there. Yeah, there is this thing, right? Extract into function. There we go. And this is going to be listen to messages. So by doing that, I essentially can read this whole setup as a sequence of function calls without any documentation. I will get what's happening. Get supported sites, verify autofill support, add autofills, save site, listen to messages, and then show the message, right? A lot easier than what it was before. And then if there's error at any of those stages, which you can throw, we're going to show an error that blah, 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 we're not supporting this website, right? Okay, so if it gets messages, it run collect info and autofill. Again, this is, so since you already have the function add autofill, I would rename it to execute autofill because it's just, a bit more descriptive. Collect info. So this does body input name. Okay, it just finds the inputs and stores all. Okay, so if the input is not empty, we store it in the input. What is the input? I guess this is the window input thing, right? Why are you using the global variable here? And why are you using the input name? Because, so the thing is that you are using window.input. What happens if you come to the page and window.input is already defined, and if it's not an object? Because the input is not such a, unique name, basically. So what I would do is I would actually change the input into something like, what's the dial work input, right? So like prefix it with something. If you are going to use global variable, make sure it's unique, because, well, keys and inputs, there's a chance someone called it the same way in the page and it's going to interfere with your script and it's going to break. Okay, blah blah blah, storing this current URL. Okay, and then we just write that input to the storage and then we send it to the runtime with a specific message, says keys. Okay, update info. So it just writes the form. Okay, cool. That seems straightforward. And then we got the exec autofill. It was a hacky Stack Overflow solution I don't agree with, but lazily used. I mean, in this case, it seems like you don't need it to be global. You can literally just do this, right? I don't see what the difference would be, because you would still iterate through all the inputs and you would still store it in this input variable and you would still store it in the storage. So why does it have to be global? I'm not sure I get it. So like, I don't think this is needed at all. Global variables is something that you should evade in general, like, because they just bring pain in ass in 99.9% of cases, and the other 0.1 is not worth it, and there's like basically better ways of doing that. Okay, the problem was that my variable were being defined more than once. Yeah, but I mean, if you're iterating at the specific point, right? So it should be only defined here. So I'm not sure. Is it open twice? It gives an error. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's, yeah. So it's like, the thing is that what you could do. So just, just don't rely on global variables, especially with as generic names as those are, because there are going to be clashes at some websites and it's going to screw up with your extension and you're going to be basically spending days trying to figure out what the hell is wrong just because someone decided to name the variable the same way you did. All right, execute autofill. So we get the form data from the storage. We find the input in text and we basically autofill based on the name. Okay, that seems straightforward. There is an empty if and else if. I guess this is something you haven't finished. And the commented out code, again, don't commit that stuff. Suggest add autofill, click blur. Okay, so there's like more suggestions. Yeah, okay. Display autofill. Okay, so this basically shows the dialog that says, hey, this is what we're going to fill, and gives a way to press or dismiss or commit. Okay, seems I mean, yeah, so there's like, it's mostly a pretty good extension. Quite a few, like, I already think I went through all the things that I think could be done nicer. Global variables, don't use them, they're just pain in the ass. Promises, use them, they are a lot nicer, and decrease this nesting of callbacks. That's going to be a lot easier to read, basically. Would you be willing to do a code review for me at some point later? Do share your project. I mean, I basically have the 2 more projects for today, but feel free to share more projects. I basically write them down, and I think I'm going to be doing those regularly. So sure, send your projects and I'm going to have a look at that. Okay, let's clone the next projects. It is a TS3 music bot, Teamspeak 3 music bot in Node.js from Mr. Drunix. I think he shared it on YouTube, if I remember correctly. And let us, so it cloned it. Let me open it over here. Where is it? Oh, did I just clone it? Yes, I did clone it inside the, right. I mean, what? Oh, come on. Come on, VS Code. Why do you have to be like this? No, oh no. Damn it, VS Code. There we go. Apologies. Yeah, Ron, sure, you're welcome. Happy to hear that this was helpful. All right, so as usual, let's start with the README. Teamspeak 3 music bot in Node.js with some cool features. And there's a streamable link that I assume is, let me just mute this stuff. And this is like Teamspeak. Okay, so it's a short video demo. That's always nice to have. Music sound, features, music, YouTube API, add songs to queues, keep songs, get title, League of Legends, Riot API, logging 5 best champions of the player in terms of mastery. Okay, so it's not just a music bot, it's also a League of Legends bot, which is, I mean, I guess it's okay. It's a bit amusing. It's sort of this universal bot. Call the repo, npm install, copy your API keys. This needs to be clarified. So copy API keys is fine, but you always have to say which API keys, right? I assume in this case it's probably Teamspeak, YouTube, and Riot, maybe. But again, this should be specified here. Ideally, you want to link to the guides that tell you where to take those keys. Launch Teamspeak 3 client, connect to server, login, password, bot name, client name. Okay. That's fine. That looks okay. So there's like some basic setup guide with screenshots, which is always nice. And then you can use bank commands in Teamspeak to do things. Okay, cool. Seems straightforward. Description is perfectly fine. My only complaint is that basically you have to, just clarify which API keys does it needs. I mean, you can probably find it out to look in the source code, but it's just nicer to have it right away. So version 1, okay, node mon for development, node source main for that, cool. Using Course Express, Fluent, FFmpeg, League.js, MongoDB. Uses MongoDB, okay. It didn't say that it needs Mongo as a dependency. Maybe it just is in the dependencies but not used. Node fetch, node.js, prompt sync, properties reader, Socket.io, speaker, okay, cool. That looks fine. So let's go. So where's the entry point? Source main, right? Source main is our entry point. And let us have a look at that. So node.js. Oh, node.js is a Teamspeak. I for some reason thought it was the TypeScript, but I guess not. All right. So again, unused variables. I guess because of the commented code, right? So we're gonna kill that because I don't want to look and read through the unused stuff. Nobody wants to. Bot name, so default bot name, default client name, welcome message. So this does what? Client send, client info. Okay, client info. Okay, so this requests the client info. Probably should be extracted into a separate function. And then if client type is not 1, this requires a comment. What is 1? I don't know. What is client type 1? First connected, last connected, send private message. Hello. Okay, so this sends the response to the client who connected with some metadata and client ID. Okay, cool. I guess this is the only thing that has to be clarified here. Everything else seems to be straightforward. Move to admin, channel lists. Okay, so this is the, I guess, the command that moves the client to a specific admin channel ID. Seems straightforward. Again, the same issue, mix tabs and spaces. Don't do that, please. I'm going to use the pre-tier now because it is just, a lot harder to actually look at code that is formatted all over the place. That is a bit weird formatting, but okay. All right, I guess because it detected the 4 spaces. Anyway, so we got admin client, okay, that's fine. Function main bot name. So this sets the bot name if it's not yet set. Bot name set to whatever. That's the client name if it's given. Again, this probably could be done easier using the. No, it's not. Okay, that's right. Okay, there's no way to do that. So we create the Teamspeak client with a given host. On error, we just log the error. That's probably a good idea, is to. Since this is sort of the critical error in this case, right? You actually want to log the error and then process exit 1 by saying that, hey, we're gonna die here because there's some error on connection and I cannot actually continue, right? There's no reason to keep running, basically. Okay, connect, send use SID1, send the login, send client update to the bot name, notify server, notify. Okay, there's some register notifications when user sends. Okay, so okay. See, this is useful comments. As a person who never worked with TypeScript, I would not know what the hell does this do, right? But this comments explain exactly what happens here. This is the good kind of comments. Okay. And event channel, there's no comments for, okay, I guess this is listen to all channels. Probably would be better to put it on top. Client list, so this gets the client list, and then client review. What is client review? Listen for clients to connect. Oh, okay, so this is basically whenever the new clients joins, it will send the welcome message. Make sense? Music bot info, okay, object client nickname. What does this do? So client list response find object client nickname equals client name. Client name not found. Okay, I'm not sure I understand what's happening here. So this needs some clarification in form of, so it tries to find a response that has the client nickname that equals to client name. What is client name? Client name set to. So it tries to move itself to the admin channel? Is that what's happening? Seems like, yeah, seems like this is exact. So it looks for messages, finds its own message, and tries to move itself to the admin channel using the ID from that message, which is, I guess you can do it this way, but it's confusing as hell. All right, listen for client, move to another channel, listen for messages. And then set interval, so on specific on. Okay, so this is just keep alive basically every 4 minutes, which is a weird interval, but I guess it's okay. All right, okay, cool. That seems straightforward. There is actually a ton more features than described in the base stuff, right? So what do we actually use? Get arguments and private, handle channel message, handle private message. We got this handle channel message and handle private message. Okay, they're both in the same file. Again, tabs and spaces mixed. Please don't do that. Formats. Come on, prettier. Do your thing. There we go. Okay, there is a ton of helper utils that it uses. All right, where is my handle channel message? There we go. So client message. Right, so if it doesn't start with a bang, if it's not bang command, then it's not a command, we just die. Perfect. Commands args substring 1 split by space. Okay, so it basically considers the first word to be a command, and then everything else is arguments. We switch by the command. Default basically says a non command. If it's our song request, arguments, if there are no arguments, we send an error. If there are some arguments, then URL, what does this do? Regex redundant escape. Add to play. What does this do? Replaces. Why is this needed? Okay, this needs some explanation. I don't know why this is here and why this is needed. So it replaces the square brackets URL with escaped URL brackets. What? You know what? I'm not gonna dive into that. Okay, and then adds to playlist, and otherwise it just adds to playlists by arguments join. Okay, so what does add to playlist do? Okay, if it's a link, then we just get the video and add it to playlist. Okay, cool, straightforward. If it's not a link, we use it as a title for search and then add it to okay, that seems straightforward. If it's a skip, then playlist get current, skip current true. Okay, then we just skip it. Skip next, I guess, right? And then skip last, current. Okay, this just gets the current one. Previous, okay, that's fine. Size. I mean, so far seems pretty straightforward. There's a Hangman game inside. So README needs to be updated because it has a lot more stuff than it actually describes in the README. There's maestro. That's a nice touch. Misspelling mastery is a thing that happens all the time. So okay, summoner name is missing. Okay, otherwise it's champion master. So it calls the champion mastery function. That is here. Basically, league summoner get by name. Okay, so it's just like calling the league API, gets the data, and then just format it into the string. Makes perfect sense. Live. What is live? Get summoner ID. So this, like, some of those are kind of self-descriptive, right? like Hangman or Mastery for League of Legends. Some of those do vary some comments which basically say, hey, this live command is live League of Legends something, I assume, because we're still using the League API. Get Summoner ID, get current match. Okay, champions map. So it seems like it does something with the current match info, but yeah, this just basically needs to be clarified. But yeah, the code is pretty solid. So like not much comments besides from, you know, mixing tabs and spaces and the formatting shenanigans. Okay, CS. This is compare summoners, again, League of Legends API calls. Yeah, majority of this stuff seems relatively straightforward. It's just like calling API and then just formatting the response in the text. There's some COVID stuff. Okay, yeah. So documentation definitely needs to be updated because it seems like there's a lot more stuff in here than the README was talking about. We get property, blah blah blah. Set property, then. Okay. I mean, seems okay. Yeah. So it's like a few more comments would do it good. Other than that, yeah. So the formatting I already said, mixing tabs and spaces and all that kind of stuff, but we already talked about it more than once today. Otherwise, seems pretty solid. Like there's not, so there's a database that is used for something. Did it actually use it for anything? So model export, so database main. Oh no, okay, so it was commented out. Okay, so it's not used, but I guess he plans to use it at some point. Don't leave the dead code in the repo, is confusing. If you are going to do that, create a separate branch that people won't see immediately if they fork your project. Get AFK channel. Okay, this is the, okay, so this is like the AFK moving. Seems straightforward as well. Again, the formatting. Yeah, I think the main problem I have with this project is basically the formatting and mixing of tabs and spaces. And there's the API keys. So this actually, this even says you, okay, so you need the right API key and Google API key, which is nice. There's the client. What is that? Client. Yes, this is the bootstrapped create React tab client. Okay, so this is the create React tab client for managing this thing. Let's have a look here. Okay, so we got your old React components. Socket, it uses socket.io to connect to the server. Wait, do we have a server here? Or does it connect to the, wait a second. Did I miss where it set up the server, or is the Teamspeak client? No, this is the Teamspeak client, right? It should only do the, wait a second. Wait, what server does it connect to? Localhost 9000. Okay, is like, does it even, there were no description of client whatsoever, right? So it says npm install and then npm start, and npm start only starts the source. I guess maybe it's a future project, but again, if you are gonna do something additional in your repo, please put it separately in a separate branch in, you know, I don't know, hidden, no, I mean not hidden, okay, separate branch, not the main branch, so that people who check it out and look at your code don't get confused by, you know, the stuff that is kind of there but doesn't really work. All right, last project we got here is from Amine. I believe he shared it on YouTube as well. So let us clone that. And I'm going to open it up over here as well. Oh, I'm running the, no, it did actually clone it. Oh yeah, right. I can use HTTPS for cloning. I forgot. That's a thing. Okay, close that. Where's my... Right, last thing we got here for today. I don't know how useful or entertaining this whole thing was today, but there we go. My education website. Okay, fine, that's good enough. Gatsby website for high school physics and chemistry based on Algerian syllabus of education. That sounds pretty awesome. Quick start. Okay, so this is basically mostly development docs. And this seems like your typical Gatsby scaffold. Okay, I assume this is the domain name for it. I don't know if I'm correct or not, but that's, it actually did open. Okay, this seems like a domain name. I have no idea what it says here, but okay, so cool. Maybe a good idea to add this domain over here because you can add it as a link, right? Let's have a look at the source codes. So what do we have here? We got license, MIT, license in the package.json matches, which is always good. So what do we have here? Okay, this is typical Gatsby setup, no unit tests, which is also fine in this case. We are using a ton of Gatsby plugins. We're using MDX, we're using Google Analytics, offline, Sharp file system. Okay, that's like KTeX, Mustache. Okay, there's like a ton of dependencies. All right. Rehype, KTeX, Remark. Okay. So let's go from the configs, I guess. Gatsby browser. So this on client entry, intersection observer. Okay, so there's the polyfitting for intersection observer. There is a wrapper for MDX provider and init modules. What is this? Where is this coming from? This is use context. Breakpoint. Okay, I guess this is the breakpoints. What does this breakpoints do? GS breakpoint. What is this? You know, I'd resize. Okay, so this is some like resize, orientation change, full screen change. What do they do? Build media. Seems like it's sort of kind of responsiveness thing. Mean only, agree. Yeah, it seems like it's a polyfill for the media query support. You still need that? Is there a description of what this do? List events determines if a given query is active. Right, so this determines if the media query is active. But why would you need that? I guess so you can react in some. Okay, anyway, we're gonna find out in a second. So you can use the media queries within your components. Okay. The breakpoint is misspelled. Using spell checkers in your editor is typically a good idea. I mean, it's not critical, but you know, it's just nicer to work with that. Okay, config. This is a typical Gatsby config, helmet, MDA. Okay, so this seems like your very typical Gatsby config with Google Analytics, anonymized, respect do not track. Great. Node. So what do we have here? Create slug, create node, front matter. Okay, this create slugs, create pages. Create. Okay, yeah, that seems like your typical templating setup. Nothing super fancy here. Breakpoints, browser. Okay, this seems like an SSR breakpoint stuff, which is not needed because we don't have any media queries on backend. Makes perfect sense. All right, so pages, index. Right, courses, use courses. What does this do? Use courses, where is it? Oh, it's in the hooks. Hooks, use courses. So, okay, this uses static query, which is GraphQL query, which gets all files with courses, source instance name. Okay, gets the data, and then just returns that data as an array of things. Okay. And then you might want to remove this console logs. I mean, when DevTools are closed, this kind of doesn't really matter, but they do tend to, you know, impact the performance a tiny bit. So it's typically a good idea to remove them from production. Featured course. So it just takes the last course and puts it as a featured, and then it just maps the courses and renders them into the course preview. Seems straightforward. Course preview is just this sort of a article thing with link, image, title, and some additional links. Perfectly fine. Okay. Where's the layouts? There seems to be a lot more things, but I don't see them. Okay, yes. Host container, sidebar, header. Where are all those other components come into play? Banner. I guess this is like the top banner, right? Body class. Set body class is preloads. What does this do? Resize. That's not gonna work. So when you the way remove event listener works is that it expects the event name and then the reference to a function that you used in add event listener. What you do here is you add event listener for this function and then try to remove it for a new function which is going to have a different reference. So ultimately you have a memory leak here that keeps adding the same event again and again and again and again. And it's going to basically slow down your website. So what you need to do here is you need to say, okay, so we got this onResize function that is created once, right? And we add an event listener here. And then once we cleanup, we do this. Then it's gonna clean it up correctly. So this is what you want to do. Using the same anonymous function in remove event listener is not gonna do anything. So it's basically gonna persist the memory leak and it's just no op. Okay, let's continue. What else do we have here? Components provider. Okay, that seems there's an unused class here. And it's just like a bunch of components. That looks like a components for MDX, basically. I'm guessing this is exactly what it is. But we're gonna find out in a second. Hey, Siddharth, welcome to the stream. Doing good. Okay, course preview we already looked at. We got exoform, whatever that is. We got, okay, so what do we have here? We get the breakpoints. I'm kind of curious to see how that will be used. Good evening from India. Well, good evening from Germany to you. Exos, set exos, version, set version. So we got a bunch of state. Keys, okay. This is a relatively expensive operation, so you might want to memorize that since it seems like it needs to run only once, basically, right? And it's basically better for performance to just memo it once and don't think about it anymore at all. And we'll change set variables, set, what is this set thing? Where is it coming from? Object path immutable. Okay, so this is like immutability updates. That's fine. Handle empty. Okay. Handle changed version. Okay, so there's like a bunch of updates. That's fine. Reset variables. This resets them to the default version. Okay, remove copy. Add notification. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this should be to do really, right? So because it says like, hey, later on I need to add notification saying that remove failed, basically, right? Which, I mean, you already have toss, so that should be literally, this should be as easy as doing that, right? So just toss fail. I think, or maybe failed. I don't know what the API is, depending on the packet. Oh God, it's all right. It's, oh man, this is the right to left language, right? So my selection skills don't apply here. Oh my God. Okay, I'm just gonna kill everything. Failed to remove blah blah blah. This is literally all you needed to do, right? So this like doesn't even have to be here. Don't be that lazy. I mean, it's okay to be lazy, but you know, just a tiny bit effort. Okay, random variables, object entries, reduce. Again, maybe you want to memorize that because it seems like you don't really need to do this every time, depending on variables. I mean, I guess I don't know how big the variables are. Maybe it doesn't matter because there's like a really small array, so it's okay to just reduce it every time. Okay, then we get rendering. Yeah, I mean, this is relatively straightforward. React component, use context. I still, so what is the breakpoint? Okay, so breakpoints are used here in the model styles. Okay, this is like one of my personal preferences, and I guess you can call it a nitpick, but I find it very confusing when you use multiple things to style components. So like in this case, it has the CSS, right, with media queries and a bunch of other stuff in one place. And then it also has Sass in another place. This seems like this is where the breakpoints are. So it has CSS, it has Sass, and there are inline styles for models. This sounds like a headache to me. Like what I tend to do is just pick one thing, be it, you know, CSS, Sass, post CSS, whatever, just one, and use that for everything. Like if you're gonna do the models, in this case, you could even remove this breakpoint setup because you could just do that within Sass, right? In the same way you are doing it right now. So why not just do it there? It doesn't look to me like this couldn't be done in Sass because there's no dynamic parts here. The only dynamic part is really this breakpoints thing, but this is already media query, so why is it here in the first place? But yeah, so this is basically what I would do here. Let me think. So this looks this looks fine. There's nothing criminal here. Okay, we do that. Yeah, so this seems like another pretty straightforward component. Got the header with a GraphQL query with some images. Also seems straightforward. Header for print. Okay, seems easy. Okay, this is a basic image component from Gatsby. Also used this one in my project. Breakpoints. Okay, set is large. What is this is large? Is large image. Oh, okay, so you basically pick. Again, this could be done with the CSS, right? So you could just set a class to your image and then use the media query in a CSS, and then you wouldn't need to do this weird way of passing the programmatically detecting if media queries are used and passing them around, because it just feels like an overhead. Layouts, the same thing with breakpoints. So set is active. I'm guessing this also probably could be like, you know, just some CSS. Okay, it's just a simple component. LaTeX is just a simple renderer. Okay, simple components, SEO, I assume this is just like the header wrapper. Yeah, helmet metadata stuff. Yeah, okay, that's straightforward. Sidebar, okay, is active. Okay, so yeah, it's like you just need to set the sidebar class and then change it based on media queries. This is exactly why media queries exist. There's no need to do this in JavaScript. Like you could, of course, and it seems like it works perfectly fine, but it's just additional overhead in handling the media queries in JavaScript. Okay, so went through that. There's, oh yeah, so holy shit, there's a lot of stuff. Okay, this seems like, okay, this is very scientific. This is like some exercises and some formula calculations. This could use some comments. So like this is not immediately apparent what they do. Like the pressure takes a value in units and then creates a variable with this value and then random and then unit. Like what does this do? There's not a single comment in this file. This should definitely be documented. Okay, acid base. This probably also could use some comments on what the hell is that, because, you know, again, I don't know what is this about. Concentration? I assume this is something to do with chemistry, judging by these formulas, but yeah, some comments would be good, explaining at least a bit what's going on. So let's have a look at the cooks. Use categories, so we get the data. Okay. Yeah, this definitely should be memo. So basically the problem here is that you're going to use this static query, and then on every component re-render, on every hook invocation, this stuff is going to run again and again and again and again. And if you have a lot of categories, that's going to get really expensive really fast. So what you want to do is you actually want to use memo here and just memoize this based on the data, right? And then the same. Is there an items that are external here? Items includes. Okay. So this is but the array referenced is to categories. You nest the categories within the categories. Like again, this is a very I don't know what exactly is going on here right now, but it is a very expensive operation that is at least on squared, right? Because we iterate twice over the same array, at least twice, if not more, because it's like, so you want to actually use memo here as well, and you want to base it on what? It's probably categories, right? And items is what you want. No, it's just categories. I think is fine. So basically you want to memorize them to make them only run once. It is a performance optimization. It's not a critical one, but it's sort of the thing that, you know, will save you a few milliseconds here and there. So it's typically a good idea to do that. Okay, context provider. We got some, again, breakpoints. Again, this should be just in CSS. You don't need to do this in JavaScript. It's just a pain in the ass and annoying. Again, the same problem, so you iterate over the array. Probably a good idea to memorize this. Same here. Again, you know, maybe those nodes are not that large and maybe there's like 10 of them or something, and it's not a big deal, but using memo is nicer because then the React doesn't have to do this every time. Okay, we looked at that already. There's the browser thing, whatever that is, can use. Okay. This determines if the browser supports a given property. Why would you use that? Why is that needed? That browser.js version 1. Okay, this seems like it's kind of a thing for polyfilling, but I'm not sure why would you need that. But okay. Okay, there's some constants. We got empty file. We got local storage. Okay, there's the hooks for local storage. Let's check this out. Window undefined. Okay, so this basically creates a polyfill for local storage. If it doesn't exist, if it's already exists, it does create a new one, right? That makes perfect sense. Initial value void 0. I mean, you can just do that. Again, we already talked about the default values today. This is like one of the simplest optimizations you can do. Use state function, return local storage get item, other or initial value. Now, what happens if the storage value is like 0? Because this will, will it? So basically, there's a better alternative right now, right? If we're using the modern tooling, there you go. It's a lot nicer than using the OR. Okay, use state from 0, use state from 1. But the thing is, so why it seems like this is transpiled from something, because really what this should be is this, right? Why is this written in such a weird way? Okay, set item function, set value, local storage, set, yeah, okay, that's fine. Local storage get item, blah, blah, blah. If it's not equal value, again, I would use the modern version of that. It's a bit nicer. So same here. Storage, remove. So here you're doing it in the right way, right? So you have the same function, which, by the way, since it is used only in useEffect, it should be defined here in the closure as well. Sorry, not here, over here, right? Because otherwise, the definition of this function will change on re-render, and there might be some problem with removing the event listener, so it might result in a memory leak. So you actually want to define it in place within this useEffect hook. Yeah, why? No, and then we can just do that because it doesn't matter. Set value. Yep, and then that looks fine. Okay. Util, what do we have here? Hey, tabs. So prior to this, everything was formatted with spaces, like you typically expect from the Gatsby project. And then all of a sudden we have a function, the file that is formatted with tabs. Why? Please don't do that. Okay, that is jQuery? Is that literally a jQuery? Prioritize? Wait, what? That used anywhere? No, it's not. So why is this? Again, don't leave dead files in your projects. Like, why is this here? Okay, 404, straightforward. I'm not gonna look into styling. States. Okay, great slice. Okay, this is a Redux. Oh boy, there's a Redux here. Why would you need a Redux with Gatsby? I guess maybe there's a lot of interactive stuff, but okay. Okay, so this is your typical setup. This is the store setup. Persist. Yeah, that seems straightforward. Have a look at all of those files, and I guess that will be it for today. All right, so this is the updates. Yeah, that seems like your typical reducers. Nothing really super fancy here. Initial state, reducer, print info. Yeah, okay. So this is like super straightforward Redux state management. Not sure you need Redux for something as simple as that. You probably go with a simpler solution and save yourself a few kilobytes from, having to drag in a Redux here. That was a Redux, right? Yeah, there is. Like this, by dropping Redux and using something smaller, maybe even just context and hooks, you could save yourself quite a few kilobytes, because bundle phobia, what is the Redux now? It's probably like, I don't know, 200, 300. I don't know, it's a 2K at this, and then there's a Redux persist. Okay, it's not too terrible. Yeah, like, so 3 kilobytes here. And then, okay, so 6 kilobytes min zipped. But it is like 53 milliseconds here, and then 60. So it's like 100 milliseconds. So yeah, it's a bit, it's a bit much for this kind of simple state management solution. So I would drop that. But yeah, other than that, that's basically it. Hey, Really Key, welcome to the stream. We are actually just wrapping up. All right, this was all projects I had for today. Again, this was the second stream on the code reviews that I did. If you have any questions or suggestions, I guess the most important right now is feedback, because like some of you guys told me that, you want to see that. The other guys told me you don't want to see that. So I'm still not sure which one is it. So do tell me if this format is interesting or not, if I should continue or not. I worked with RxJS quite a lot, Really Key, so I am familiar with using it. I'm not sure why would you use it for animations, but I mean, I guess you could, but that sounds like I don't know. So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? Maybe I can help. Anyhow, coming back to the format, so do let me know if you are interested in me doing more of the code reviews. If you are, send me your projects. You can do it in the YouTube comments. You can do it on our Discord chat. You can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm basically going to write them down, and then if there's enough of them, seems like we can do 3-4 projects per stream. And yeah, that's probably what it's going to be if I continue with this format. RxJS on Ultimate courses. I have no idea what the Ultimate courses are, but RxJS documentation is really good. Like, you should just go to the official website and just have a look at what they have here, because there's like, they even have recipes now that literally show you how it works. Like, they even have a games. Holy shit, they have a games here now. So yeah, like, just look at the official docs. They're really, really good. And there's also the awesome RxJS collection that also contains a trove of incredible information about RxJS. I don't remember if it was this one or the other one. Was it this one? Or was it this one? It was one of them that had like a really cool... maybe all of them. So Rx is a really popular library, and there is a ton of docs and information on it, and it's really easy to find whatever is basically interesting to you. This doesn't seem like it. My favorite thing when I was learning it was there was the pretty big book about it. Kind of like a website / book. This is the Manning. This is no. Was it this last one? No, this is something completely different. Yeah, if you want to learn RxJS, just find some videos from Ben Lesh, who is literally one of the guys who maintains it, and just look at that. Yeah, sure. Join the Discord if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to help you. All right, I guess that will be it from my side. So as I said again, guys, if you want to see your projects reviewed, throw them into the comments, throw them into the Discord, reach out to me on Twitter. Do give me feedback, and let's just see how it goes. What do you say about Sequelize? Is it good for Postgres? Sequelize is a pretty nice ORM, yeah. So if you want to work with Postgres, then it's not the worst thing you can pick out there. It's pretty solid. You made Slack-like API now. I'm not sure what you mean by Slack-like API, not JS. What does Slack-like API means? Like, Slack has a ton of different APIs, and most of them are like they have webhooks, they have chat APIs that I think WebSockets. I don't remember, like, it's been a while since I worked with them. But anyhow, if you have any other questions or suggestions, join our Discord and poke me there, and we can just do it there. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you found something useful during this random code reviews, and I see you next time.